Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to do something pretty cool. We're going to seamlessly connect the dots between that everyday wallet in your pocket and the massive, swirling macroeconomic forces shaping our entire world. We hear about things like AI supercycles and central bank rates constantly, right? But how do those massive, abstract concepts actually relate to the cash you're carrying right now? Well, let's bridge that gap.
Let's just jump right into the ultimate question. How exactly is your personal monthly budget literally hardwired into a $50 trillion global financial machine? A system, by the way, that is growing twice as fast as the global GDP itself. Yet right at the very heart of this unimaginably complex beast is something completely familiar to you: your daily financial decisions.
To map all this out, we're going to use a zoom-out method. We'll start with personal finance basics, move into unlocking the financial markets, and then valuing corporate assets. After that, we'll look at institutional risk and disruption, check out the 2026 global outlook, and wrap it all up with the ethics of money.
All right, starting right off with personal finance basics, the foundation of the ecosystem.
Because everything really does start right at the bottom line: your own money. There are 5 completely non-negotiable steps to managing individual finances. You bring cash in through income, you manage what goes out through spending, you save the surplus, you invest those savings to get some returns, and then, crucially, you protect that wealth against the unexpected with insurance. Every single financial action you take, it falls into one of these buckets.
The absolute most crucial point here is that controlling your discretionary spending to create a cash surplus, that is literally your ticket to entering the investment game. We obviously don't always have immediate day-to-day control over our income, but we typically have far more control over our spending habits. Creating that surplus, that magic gap between what you earn and what you spend, is the single most important prerequisite, because without a surplus, the rest of this entire global financial ecosystem just remains locked to you.
So where does that surplus actually go? Let's unlock the financial markets.
Once you've got that hard-earned surplus, the financial markets act as the massive engine directing your funds to businesses and governments. And you're faced with an immediate choice: money market or capital market. If you just want to park your cash safely for less than a year, you use the money market for highly liquid, low-risk instruments. Think treasury bills. But to build real long-term wealth, you enter the capital market, taking on higher volatility in equities and bonds for a much, much larger potential reward.
Now, if we zoom into the capital market itself, there's a super important divide you need to understand. The primary market is where the actual fundraising goes down. Think of an IPO, where a company actually gets your cash, and you get newly minted shares in return. But after that happens, those shares trade on the secondary market. When you buy a stock on your standard exchange today, you aren't actually giving a single dime to the company. You are simply buying that share from another investor.
Moving on to valuing corporate assets, where we decode the black box.
So if you're buying on that secondary market, how do you actually know what a company is truly worth? Stock prices can honestly feel like a total black box, completely disconnected from reality. But they actually reverse engineer into 3 pretty digestible chunks. First, you have asset value, literally what the company physically owns right now. Second, earnings power, their current proven ability to generate steady cash flow. The entire rest of that price tag, that's speculative growth, the premium you are paying for what you hope they'll achieve in the future.
Ultimately, you've got to use financial statement analysis to ask a really practical, grounded question: can this company actually deliver the future performance that I am paying for today? Instead of just guessing, you look at their past operations, you separate them out from their financing activities, and you benchmark them. You quantify the exact stock price they're asking you to pay, and you mathematically reverse engineer it to see if their implied future sales are even realistic. This is exactly how you gain a real edge in the markets, rather than just blindly gambling.
Let's pan out a bit for institutional risk and disruption, and what we call the banking dilemma.
Zooming out to the massive institutions that facilitate all these trades, we find a fascinating and honestly kind of counterintuitive reality. Banks with lower net worth actually hedge less against risk. Now, you'd probably think a struggling financial institution would be the first to buy plenty of insurance, right? But risk management has an opportunity cost. Because both hedging and lending require precious collateral, a financially constrained bank will actually abandon its risk management just to keep its core lending business alive.
And you know this precarious balancing act? It makes traditional legacy banks highly vulnerable today. Because they're chained to these heavy net worth trade-offs and strict regulatory constraints, they are facing absolutely massive competition from fintech.
These agile tech-oriented firms bypass the old constraints entirely. They're creating incredibly efficient business models for peer-to-peer lending and digital payments, and they're doing it without carrying all that legacy banking baggage.
Which brings us to the macro picture, the 2026 global outlook.
Looking ahead, JP Morgan Research is projecting a 35% probability of a global recession in 2026, largely driven by weak business sentiment and soft labor demand. But that leaves a solid 65% chance for resilient global growth. What we're witnessing is a truly multidimensional polarization in the economy. On one side, you've got sluggish, non-tech demand and businesses acting super cautious about hiring, which obviously eats into consumer purchasing power. But on the flip side, you have front-loaded fiscal policies and really healthy corporate balance sheets fighting back hard to keep the global expansion humming along.
So what's actually driving that resilient growth? Well, it's a massive AI supercycle. It is fueling record capital expenditures and above-trend earnings growth, expected at over 13% in both the US and the Eurozone. But we gotta be careful here. This is creating extreme market concentration. It's becoming a huge winner-takes-all dynamic, where the divide between companies successfully integrating AI and the rest of the market is just growing wider every single day.
Finally, let's take a hard look at the ethics of money and the system's true purpose.
Because with a $50 trillion global machine growing at this kind of breakneck speed, we absolutely have to pause and look at the ethical implications. Financial bubbles and ethical collapses, they're definitely not new. They echo all throughout history, from the bond markets of Renaissance Italy to the 18th century Mississippi bubble, right up to our modern era. Humans just have this deeply ingrained herd instinct when it comes to investing. The specific mechanisms might change over time, but the underlying psychological drivers behind the boom and the bust, they remain entirely, flawlessly consistent.
We saw this unchecked, wild greed so clearly back in 2001 when telecom companies like Qwest engaged in what they called round-trip swaps. Basically, they were trading hundreds of millions of dollars with themselves just to artificially inflate their quarterly revenues. In one instance, they sold $870 million of network capacity and, at the exact same time, bought $868 million of capacity right back. It served literally zero operational purpose. The finance department wasn't supporting the company anymore. It was just playing a game to manufacture profits on paper.
And that brings us to a crucial point. When our business schools are out there teaching profit maximization without ever really questioning the purpose behind it, we fall into this incredibly dangerous fever of accumulation. We end up suffering from a stunted moral development in the financial sector because the most fundamental question, what is the actual purpose of this business, never even gets asked. We reduce everything to a pure economic entity. And if maximizing shareholder value is your only goal and accumulation is your only end, the system completely loses its moral compass and raw greed takes over.
So as we navigate all the way from our own personal monthly budgets right up to the wildly complex AI-driven markets of 2026, we have to leave you with one big question. Is this $50 trillion machine actually working for society, or is it just endlessly working for itself? We've traced the entire path, from the surplus in your checking account, through the capital markets, past the balancing acts of legacy banks, all the way to the macroeconomic edge of the future. Understanding these mechanics gives you serious power over your own financial destiny. But understanding the ethics, that gives us the power to question the system itself. Thank you so much for joining this explainer, and we'll catch you next time as we continue to break down the forces shaping our world.